Welcome back to the PMR podcast. My name's Andrew Staley. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I'm really excited for this episode. We have a very special guest. As you can see, my boys are in the studio once again. Very grateful and honored that we can be a part of that experience. Of course, I'm still on Zoom, but I will get out there one day.
Welcome back. My name is Mitch. I'm an addict alcoholic. Super excited about this one today. We have a very special guest. His name is Miles. We met him through the Vic James Center, or through Sarah. He works at the Vic James Center. He does music programming there. He's a singer, songwriter, producer. He's a fellow in recovery. Super dope dude. We're super excited to have you on today, man.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah, grateful to be here.
Yeah, and we're rocking the same shoes. I know you can't see it, but we are. Trust me.
Blazer gang.
That's right. We were talking a couple days ago on the phone, and wanted to hear a little bit about like what you were doing because Andrew and I both work in recovery. I do some of the like humanities, if you will. Like I do creative writing there, and you were saying, or you do music programming and like songwriting groups and stuff like that. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And so I've been with Vic James Center now for a little over a month, actually. And I've been going into places like SPY, Safe Place for Youth, and a different rehab, and bringing in songwriting classes. I know for me, growing up, I was just like, I would hear a song that I loved, but I didn't understand why I loved it. And so being able to go into these places and kind of just break down music and talk music. And I bring in my acoustic guitar and we kind of just write a song together. And I'm an alcoholic and an addict, and I've been clean and sober. I'll have 9 years in November. And I know for me, just feeling so shut down, when I was in my disease and not having the tools to really express those emotions. And so going into these places with other addicts or alcoholics, or even just people who aren't addicts or alcoholics, but people who are, struggling and going through it and don't have the resources that other people might have, and to be able to teach them guitar or teach them how to write a song, and then all of us breaking out into singing a chorus that we all wrote together. It's a really powerful experience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I agree with you on like I feel like I did the same thing with writing and journaling, like just different ways to express ourselves and kind of let go. And like I feel like a lot of recovery settings are pretty intense, and like you're going through a lot of stuff, whether it's like individual therapy or group therapy. So I've always been a fan of the we have like yoga and music group, writing group. I think those are super important for a lot of reasons, and there's a lot of therapeutic value in that.
Yeah.
And it's also something that you can carry into like once you leave treatment, or it can become a positive passion, as opposed to drug and alcohol abuse, which is not so positive.
Yeah.
Just wanted to comment, like, number one, it's kind of amazing, the three of us sitting here talking about these type of therapeutic like practices in addiction recovery. With Mitch, like Mitch focuses on the writing, and more of that creative writing and humanities. Like you called me, I don't know, a month ago, Mitch, and you were super stoked on like this idea you had about like creative writing, kind of stream of consciousness slash like giving a prompt and seeing what people come up with. And it's very similar, I think, to what you do, Miles, and like a similar way. And this is what I think is so cool is I do breath work, meditative breath work. That's my I guess you could say creative outlet in recovery. and I lead classes and workshops at the treatment center that I work at. And I just think it's really, really amazing that the three of us are sitting here with three kind of like different, like completely different, but complete, like the aim and the emotion and the like the benefit that we get from it is the same. And like with you with the music classes, Mitch with the humanities and the writing, me with the breath work, like three different prongs of this like self-expression, which is really, really amazing. I just wanted to kind of reflect on that. That's really cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we talk a lot about like program building and recovery and what your program looks like.
Yeah.
And when we're all talking about this, it's like kind of like what all three of us are kind of drawn to. And that's part of our program now, outside of a 12-step program, in the last couple of weeks, we've really been talking about like what your individual program looks like. So I wanted to hear from you, Miles, like what does your recovery program look like today?
Yeah, so I'm in 12-step program, and for me, that kind of helped me build a foundation. And the people in that program kind of just, I didn't know how to live. Like I got clean and sober at 20, and I had dropped out of college, and just my life was not going in the right direction. And so 12-step program kind of gave me a foundation for how to be accountable. Like when I say something, I have to follow through with it, and just giving me like these basic fundamentals of just life skills that I didn't have, and so for me, what my program looks like is, prayer and meditation is huge for me, exercise, making sure that I'm putting the right food in my body, having a creative outlet like music, being of service, helping others. I'm in therapy. Therapy is huge. Therapy's helped me tremendously. Yeah, I mean, the list goes on. It takes a lot of work to keep this guy together, you know?
I agree with you on that. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's super cool. And when we talked on the phone, you're like, got sober at 20. I got sober at 22 or 20 also. I always say 22, and then I think that people think I say 22, but they probably get it. Anyways.
Yeah.
But I got sober around that time also, and it's a kind of a wild, like early 20s or 20s at all. It's kind of, I guess any time is wild to get sober at, but that whole like getting sober before a legal drink, people are always like, must have been bad. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I guess with your growth and your recovery, coming up on 9 years, can you talk a little bit about what got you to getting sober at that age, and how you've sustained recovery to this point?
Yeah, for sure. This actually kind of ties into the Vic James Center as well, because, I was in and out of rehab as a teenager, and it just felt so sterile. I was actually learning more about drug use than actually like recovery, and so going into these rehabs where I felt like someone was talking down to me, and I felt like, first of all, I didn't even want to be there.
Right.
But yeah, for me, it was like drugs and alcohol were a way for me to deal with those overwhelming feelings, because I didn't have the tools to really deal with a negative emotion or a positive emotion, regardless of whatever, if it was good or bad. It was like, oh, let's go get fucked up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when I go into these different facilities, I tell them, I'm like, look, I'm not an authority. Like, I'm just here to, if it's a treatment center, I'll be like, I'm just another alcoholic and drug addict, and this is something that's worked for me.
Yeah.
And so just to answer your question, like, I was in and out of treatment centers at 14. I started using and drinking at 11. And then by the time I was 19, not to get into too much detail, but I was just like hopeless. I would wake up and I didn't like the person that I was. And I wasn't like out, committing crimes or doing some crazy shit. I couldn't live in my skin anymore. And I looked at my life and I was like, wow, this is not working out the way that I thought it was going to work out. And my mom's been sober for over like 30 years. So my whole life, I never saw my mom take a drink. And she's like, maybe you should check out a 12-step program.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then eventually I was just in enough pain. I was like, okay, let's go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I relate to that, like not being comfortable in my own skin, not like not being comfortable at all. The only thing that was comfortable was to be like, numbed out as much as I could possibly be.
Right.
And like I used to like be proud of the fact that I wasn't sober for like 2 years straight. There was always something that I needed to be coursing through me. But it's hard at that age too, right? Because it's pretty normalized to be drinking and doing drugs at that age.
Yeah.
Or at least, a lot of people are trying it out for the first time. And I always thought like the issue with college was, and in terms of identifying a problem, is that everybody's getting, binge drinking or blackout drinking on the weekend. So you can really hide there. And you can really not look like a problem, like, oh, it's just a rough night. And then, it only stands out when it's like like 4 weeks of rough nights in a row, or something like that. So
Right.
I always think it's like a blessing for people to get sober at that age, and be able to identify the problem and a willingness to change at that point. And it sounds like your mom being in recovery,
Yeah.
that was that may have been a big piece, just hearing from her.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would, yeah, yes, absolutely. She was kind of a sober influence in my life.
Yeah.
So that was, huge.
That's awesome.
You guys are amazing getting sober at 20. Miles, you don't know much of my backstory. We didn't get a time to chat like you and Mitch did before. I got sober at 23, which was 2.5 years ago. And Mitch, I did like exactly, and we've talked about this before, but exactly what you mentioned. Like I use college and the culture and the behavior of those around me to like hide. Like I'm going to surround myself with people who are like me. And Miles, I really like what you said in your story, talking about coming into a program of recovery. Like I didn't want this because I didn't have like all the consequences they talk about. Like I wasn't going out and like you said, I wasn't like committing the crimes that you hear about on TV, or like when you're, a little kid and you're in the DARE programs or whatever. And I didn't look like, the person that I imagined like an alcoholic or a drug addict to be. Like I had that image in my head of the homeless man under the bridge drinking, a bottle of alcohol out of a paper bag. And like I wasn't that guy yet. And because of that, I didn't identify. Like I was like, my life is still, semi manageable, but at its core, it's exactly what you said. Like, and that really hit me like square in the chest when you just said that, because what I couldn't stand was like waking up and living in my own skin. Like I woke up and I looked in the mirror, if I could look in the mirror, and if I happened to, meet my gaze in the mirror, I didn't like the person who was staring back at me. And that's all it takes. Like I can't stress that enough. And I work with, I work with people who are young. A lot of the people at the treatment center that I work at are in their teens or in their low 20s. And they're like, it's not that bad. A lot of I hear that all the time. It's not that bad. I haven't been arrested. I've never overdosed. I've never been in a psych ward. Whatever it is, like whatever the yet is. And all like the only thing I can say is like, yeah, but do you wake up and like just like where you're at, like who you are, like and that's like and that's a very different question, because it's not about external consequences. It's about like the internal strife. of like waking up and having to live with yourself. You know what I mean? So I got, I could identify big time with that. The amazing story getting sober at 20.
Yeah, well, I got sober and then relapsed. So I came back at 22. So I just want to clarify.
Oh, glad you came back.
Yeah, thank you. Me too.
Yeah. With what Andrew was saying too about that internal struggle, I think it's that is what it is. Like, it is an internal decision. No matter what the outside consequences are, you can face a ton. I mean, I've met tons of people. I never went to jail. I never went to prison. I've met tons of people that have. I've met tons of people. The bottom is as deep as you dig it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can keep digging, and it's like always going to be an internal decision. It's always going to be like, from my perspective, it comes down to you and your higher power. Even if you're not aware of it, making that decision to finally accept the recovery road, if you will. But I think it's like, I've met so many people that high functioning, recently, that I talk with them and they point to this is all good. I do well at work. I do well. My relationships are fine. This is fine. I drink every day. I use every day. But it's not that big of a problem. I don't have that problem. I just have depression or anxiety.
Right.
It's not and it's working in recovery. It's like, I don't want to say that I can see it before they do. I don't have that ability, and I don't like to say like you are an addict or an alcoholic. I try not to do that, but it is hard to see someone, and I know that pain and that struggle, and I can see it behind their face. You can tell me that you're fine, but I can feel it. We've been there, right? We've all had interactions with people like that, and it's just hard. I know working in recovery, it's like a lot of wishing for others, which can be hard to do. But I do want to ask you, like, we talked a little bit about Andrew saying that image of what an addict or an alcoholic is, and we used to always open the episodes with asking our guests, in your opinion, what is an addict or an alcoholic? So where you stand now, I guess, what would you say to that?
Dude, it's funny because I've known people with mansions who have tons of money and then they end up by ODing and dying. I've had people with huge outside success that I've known personally, and then I find out that they're dead, and you're like, what? And so for me, an alcoholic and an addict can come in all shapes and sizes. It doesn't matter where you come from, what job you have. It's just like, for me, the way that I define it is, that I've learned how to define it is just, when I start, I can't stop. And it's that lack of power. And that's what it is. And like, and I've known people who go hard.
Yeah, right.
They're doing coke, they're doing, whatever, but their life is manageable. And if they want to put it down, they can. And so it's like, okay, no big deal. Like, when I first got clean and sober, I had this savior complex. Like, I wanted to get everyone sober. I was like, yo, you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict, and it's like, I have no idea if they are, and for me, it's like, if when you start, you have trouble stopping, and if your life is unmanageable and you're having trouble with that, then maybe you should start considering, trying abstinence.
Right.
So,
yeah. That's one of my when I talk with people, if they ask me, for my opinion, I basically be like, you can I would try stopping drinking and see how you feel. 100%.
Yeah, we talked about that all last week. Miles, I want to talk a bit about music. When Sarah first talked about you and about all the programming at Vic James, this particular topic stood out to me because, and I want to hear both of your guys' opinions on this and thoughts. Like, music's always been important to me. It's been an important part of my life high, and it's been an important part of my life sober. And I had those songs, those playlists that those are the ones that, you know what I mean? Like, that were quote unquote special to me when I was out there. my relationship with music has changed big time. Whereas like I used to listen, and I listened to I was part of the, Juice World, Future, or whatever. Like that was
Oh
my
yeah.
Juice WRLD.
go-to. And it's like it's changed a lot. Where like I find myself listening to like Jim Croce and like Simon and Garfunkel, and I'm like, what happened to me?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
But it's crazy. Like, so I want to know like how is your guys' relationship? Because mine is I'm trying to process it right now, like as we're talking, and it's whereas I used to like glorify and romanticize songs, like they used to bring me back, or like specific parties or images in my head would pop up from my past. Um, I find that music for me now is a lot more healing. Like I have actual emotional experiences with music. Like whereas I used to be like used to think I was having a real authentic whatever experience, and maybe I was, but it was under the influence. Like I was never able to emotionally access like a song or a piece of music the way I am now. Like I found like I was listening to like Jack Johnson the other day in the car, and like I like feel my cheek, and there's a like I'm fucking crying. I'm like, what had happened to me? Like, you know what I mean? So how has it changed for you?
Well, Banana Pancakes is a sick track.
Pancakes.
I will say that. I will say that. Yeah, man, for me, music, I started writing when I was 14. I wrote my first song at 14, and I grew up in a musical household where jamming and playing music together was kind of a way to relate and connect. And music was that one thing that no matter what was going on in my life, it never left me, When I was at my lowest point, and I'm sure we can all relate to that, it's like, if it's not music, it's something, that one thing that you can go to when you're in a low spot. And yeah, so music has just kind of been a constant in my life. I remember growing up as a teenager, I was writing music, and I had a couple opportunities that, could have been huge, for me. And I just couldn't show up. I just, 16, 17 years old, and these opportunities, and I just I just couldn't show up. I didn't know how. I was so filled with fear and dealing with so much anxiety, and I just kind of checked out, And I remember getting clean and sober, and going my life is over at 20, 2022. And what am I gonna do? I thought I was gonna be a famous rock star by 17, and then realizing for me personally, my own experiences, there's so much more to life than just your job or your career. And so music for me today, I eventually just I was okay, I'm gonna learn how to produce, I'm gonna learn how to write songs, I'm gonna learn how to mix my own stuff. And so I just finance my own gear, finance my own home studio, and just YouTube University gang. I just taught myself, and I never liked school. I hated school growing up. I was just tapping on the desk all day, and I was I don't want to be here. I hate it. It feels like prison. And so yeah, so I just taught myself how to do it. And that's the beautiful thing today, is that you can save up and buy yourself an audio interface and get yourself a laptop, and you can just make records and release them onto Spotify and Apple Music and all these different streaming platforms. So that's something also that I like to bring into places like SPY, is because there are young adults who have so much drive and so much hustle, and they're so talented, and it's just trying to kind of arm them with some tools to try and put that into action, so they can kind of actualize their dreams, And yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of that, I know you have a single coming out soon, next Friday.
I do next Friday, yeah.
And what's the name of that one?
It's called Girl with the Tattoos.
Girl with the
It's
Tattoos.
about my fiance.
Oh, your fiance?
Yes.
Hey, congratulations.
I'm engaged up.
That's electric.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do I have that coming down the drain at 31? Is that when that happens?
Hey man,
Yeah.
we'll see.
It's not my plan. You're right.
We'll see.
I will say, I was going to say, we're going to plug that. We'll probably have that on the episode. So look out for that single. I listened to it yesterday. It's very good.
Thank you.
You're
man.
very talented.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Great
track.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. Steve-O, who's in the room here. Also, we haven't mentioned it yet, but we have a couple of my buddies in here right now. Bebe, Sam, and Steve-O in the room. They're listening, they're visiting, so I want to shout them out. But when you talk about showing up, how hard is it for us to, like, show up? Like, I didn't really... I just started figuring out how to show up like a year ago.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like show up
Oh,
yeah,
dude, me
but,
too.
like,
Me too, dude. Absolutely.
showing up consistently.
Oh.
Like I used to, like, last year, like, make all these commitments. I have like a private swim lesson business and like still do this too, but it's like I canceling and coming up with this and that and like how hard is it to like tell someone I will be there and then be there? Like I started like really trying to be a man of my word on things like that. And like when someone asks for help or can you meet me for lunch, go, like we talk a lot about being of service for others. And I think like showing up for your passion, like things that you are passionate about, we used to like not show up for that. Like you're talking about when you were like 14, 15, 16, being anxious about it. I've been a swimmer all my life. And like when I was like 12, 13, 14, I got really fast. And it was like, that's when I started to get heavy into drug and alcohol abuse. And basically like a lot of pressure. I was on like a pretty intense team. And I pretty much picked partying over pursuing that, like, passion of mine. And thankfully I was given another opportunity to return to that sport in college sober and tried to make the most of it in my last 3 years there. But it is wild how like your passions and stuff, those things kind of fade away once it's either too much or you make a decision to go into drugs and alcohol as an alternative. I think like you have this beautiful opportunity to return to music and pursue it how you are. And it's really cool to see that. And not everyone gets an opportunity, I think, to return to their passion, their sport, and whatever it is,
And I think the biggest thing for me was just dropping the black and white thinking. It's either all or nothing.
Yeah.
Because that's how I grew up. It's like you either win or you lose. And I understand that to some degree, right? But for me, it was also like, well, let's set the bar a little lower. Like, let's start with making your bed. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let's start with like putting, like, accomplishing a smaller task and then eventually move. So like, just trying to make realistic, tangible goals to start building some self-esteem and making progress, and being able to see myself make progress was like huge for me.
Esteemable acts build self-esteem. I heard
That's
that
it.
one probably. I hear that one all the time, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Just like being of service, doing what you is not even doing things that are not even asked of you. I think is hard. In terms of like the groups, take me inside like kind of what a group at the Vic James Center would look like. Like you go in there, and what do your classes look like?
Well, there might be someone sleeping.
Yeah.
No. Well, no, there was someone sleeping yesterday, but I was like, hey man, is it cool if we,
Yeah.
It's good for all of us to be engaged and whatnot. But I come in, I have my guitar. I talk about some basic music theory concepts. And help, like, just try and teach them, like, oh, these chords go with these chords, and this is why. And okay, pick out of these chords, which one? A minor. Oh, C, G. And then eventually it's like, okay, what kind of mood do you want? You want fast, slow. And so, like, in a way that they can communicate the kind of music that they like. And then I'll start playing a riff, and I'm like, okay, what do you think? Happy or sad? Major is happy, minor is sad. And then, yeah.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then we'll do like different, like, yeah, thank you, man. And we'll do like different creative writing exercises as well. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have heard of object writing.
Maybe describe it a little bit more.
Yeah. So it's a way for you to kind of connect to your senses. So you write your 5 senses down on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then you add 2 others. It's I think it's organic and kinesthetic or motion.
Yeah.
Organic or kinesthetic is like heartbeat. You know, things that are happening internally.
Yeah.
Shallow breathing, deep breathing, whatever it may be. And then kinesthetic is like running, jumping, flying, or whatever. And so object writing it'll be like, okay, so let's set a 10-minute timer, and you're going to try and incorporate all of these 7 senses into free writing. And then afterwards, I'll play a riff, and we kind of just vibe, and people share what they wrote. Yeah.
I like that a lot. It sounds like a grounding kind of like exercise as well, kind of like calling your attention to the present. I like that a lot. I think it's so important to have like those groups and those classes and like share that. So are you predominantly working with like that 16 to 25 age range?
Yeah, demographic. I mean, sometimes if the class isn't full, we'll have older people join, but that's kind of our main focus.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on a couple of the things that you guys were talking about earlier too, in terms of getting like Mitch with you with swimming, Miles with music. Like it kind of takes me back to our definition of an alcoholic and an addict. Like when we start giving the things up that we love, or they start to fall like by the wayside because we choose alcohol and drugs over them, like that's another thing that was explained to me. Like, all right, Andrew, you haven't been to jail, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, but like, have you ever given something up so that you could get high or drunk? And that's, you know, obviously the answer was yes. You know, many times. And something I heard that I completely identify with both of you, like Miles, you had these opportunities come up when you were 14, 15, 16 years old. You know, Mitch with this, you know, the swimming opportunities on that very, very competitive team, right? Like we don't, you know, I started things, and I didn't finish them. Like that was my MO. Like I would start something, I'd have a great idea. I'd start with the best of intentions, and you know, at some point in the middle, I'd fizzle out, or I'd move on to the next thing, or or that crippling anxiety takes over, that like internal dialogue of I'm not good enough, you know, why even bother? I'm gonna fail. It just takes over. And into what you're saying now, Miles, like those, it's funny. Like I could sit in those group therapy rooms in treatment and talk about all like, it's fun. Like it's weird. Maybe it's weird. I don't know, but I could talk about the shit that was going wrong forever. Like I could sit there in the room, like, and just be like, yeah, this is fucked up. This is wrong. This is why I stink. Like, this is why I'm like, this is all the shit that is not good in my life. But then when it came time, and we had music groups, but they were slightly different. We had to like pick songs that uplifted us. And like I said, like I'm listening to Juice WRLD and Future, and like I'm not getting uplifted very much, like in where I was from and what I was used to. And when it came time to like be positive and like be in those groups, like I was so confused because my whole addiction and a lot of my life was centered around like negative reinforcement and like negative thinking. And I like, even when I succeeded, I only succeeded because I was afraid of the consequences of failure, not because I wanted to succeed or that I like truly felt like it was a good thing for me, like, or that I was inspired or confident in myself. So then I'm like in these groups and we're trying to like, it's positive affirmation group and and all these things. I'm like, this makes me really uncomfortable. Like it just did. Like, and thinking about being, at 16, 20, I mean, what my age when I got sober, 23, and like some guy coming in and being like, hey, like, let's make a song. Like my, it'd be hard. It's hard for me to think that like I would just be like, oh yeah, let's do this. Like
Right.
purely because of my own self dialogue and the way that I think about myself, like immediately I know my head would go to like, I can't do that. How am I going to do that? That's way too much for me. So do you meet that type of like reaction? Do you have, kids like kind of pushing back, like, no, this sounds too hard, or I don't want to like talk, you know what I mean? How does that go?
Oh, 1,000%. Absolutely. Yeah, dude. Yeah. But it's oh God. I texted Sarah like last week after our group. I was like, this is fucking amazing. Oh my God. I'm so grateful to do this. This is so rad. Because, I was that guy. I so relate to you, dude. My heroes were heroin addict musicians who died at fucking, 26 or 27. Like, positive, happy people bum me out. I was like, leave me alone. So I relate to that. So that's like the context of like, yeah, okay, I get it. But I think when you're in a group setting, and for me, I'm being vulnerable, I'm singing, I'm playing guitar, and there's something magic about music. Music I don't know, man. It goes without saying. It's like there's something that happens when you listen to music. And yeah, so there were definitely, I think, there was one guy who was a little older, and I think he had like recently been out of prison, and like you see him and he's kind of just like sitting back, his arms crossed. He's like not really he's like, oh, this is lame, whatever. And then by the end of the class, I'm like, stomp your feet. Okay, let's go. Stomp, clap, stomp, clap, stomp, clap. And then I have everyone, and they're all just to connect with rhythm. And then I'm playing my guitar, and then suddenly there's this magic that happens where everyone is like, oh shit, what the? And I'm playing a certain riff on the guitar, and then one guy, and we're going around in a circle, and I break people into groups. So it's like if there's 10 people, there's 5 groups of 2. And so group 1, they're reading what they have, their lyrics and their melody. And then if there's something like a certain melody that I think could be a hook, I'll echo that back. And I'll sing that hook, oh my, or whatever. And I'm playing guitar, and then suddenly, like, we just broke, like, everyone just starts singing this melody. And I think when you have a melody that you can, and so look, it's not every time, but this was a special case where it was like this dude who was sitting back, crossing his arms, he's like, this is lame, whatever. He was literally like near tears after the group because we went in a circle, and he's like, bro, that was incredible. Thank you for doing that. Like, music is wow. And so to have that, I was like, oh shit, okay, it's rad. I guess it's working.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that. That's like the pureness and the realness of interactions like that.
Yeah.
I love those. Like, and I'm a shower singer, so I'll never be able to provide that for anyone.
Yeah, but it's even just creative writing. It's just like, stream of consciousness, whatever. And I make it clear, it's like, if you're not comfortable, like, no pressure whatsoever. And I tell them, I'm like, look, I'm not a music therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just an alcoholic addict who found, peace through music. And like, if you want to participate, and we can write a song together,
Yeah. 100%. I think that's when you're mentioning that, it's so funny that like when I was in treatment too, I probably would have been like, I'm too good for this. Like, actually, Mitch, you're in rehab. It's like, I think we're gonna do the music group.
Exactly right. Right.
But yeah, I think that's so awesome that you're like providing that and helping people get out of that, of the uncomfortableness that they might have, or the closed off, the wallness, to that.
Right.
Because you bring such like a happy, welcoming energy, and
See,
I would imagine that.
That's
Is that weird? Is that weird to hear?
It's wild. I hear that. They're like, oh man, you're so confident. You're so happy.
Yeah.
And it's just been years of like reading Marianne Williamson and just writing gratitude lists for 9 years. Just like, grateful for my dog, grateful for another day, grateful to be sober. I'm like, fuck. And this shit better be working, dude, because I'm fucking,
I love that. It does. The gratitude list will sneak up on you.
Exactly. Suddenly I'm like,
it's like the most powerful tool against having a bad day. Like if you're having a bad day, sit down and write 10,
Oh, and exercise. Exercise is huge.
Exercise, definitely.
Positive affirmations, YouTube. It's a free resource. I'll just put on some guy screaming at me, "You're amazing! Don't forget it!" And I'm like in the gym. I'm like, "Yeah, fuck yeah!"
No, I love that. It's like I remember my therapist in treatment told me, like I'm sure you guys are familiar with this one, but like go up to the mirror and tell yourself you love you, or I love you, And I'm much better at it now, but I remember how weird and terrifying that was. Like just terrifying. Like look myself in the mirror and say that. That was, even now it's like it doesn't feel weird. I do it now, and it feels good when I do it. But it's mind blowing that kind of like interaction with yourself would be uncomfortable.
Right.
It's like just you talking to you. And it's like I'm not saying that to him.
Right.
I think the growth in ourselves throughout recovery, like even a couple of years ago, I was in a meeting and this guy that I had been sitting next to for a couple of months, he's like, was homeless in LA for like 10 years, like built himself back up to a point where he was like working for Apple as like a programmer, which is nuts. But he was like, you never look people in the eyes. And he like said that to me and I was like, oh, what does that mean? And he was like, you always look down or look away. And like really tried to get to the bottom of that. And just I did the steps again in the last like 2 years. And just getting more comfortable with me, being able to like share space with someone else, be comfortable with them, or provide an environment where everyone's comfortable,
For sure.
is just new. Even now, which is kind of wild. It's awesome to see you being able to provide that, and I know it's like weird hearing that, but you really do give off like an amazing energy, and
thank you.
It's awesome what you're doing with those groups too.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
The thing that and I see it with you as well, Mitch. Like it's very difficult to just like create that the energy that allows an experience like what happened in that room with that guy sitting back with his arms crossed, and that almost like complete 180 and change of heart that he had, and with you, Mitch, and your creative writing groups, like it's hard to convince a group of people like us, or whoever it may be, at-risk youth, like people who are hurting, like it's hard to convince them that like they can enjoy themselves and like let their guard down around others. And that's like, the only reason I say that is because it's still hard for me to let my guard down around others. Like, I mean, I haven't been doing this a terribly long time. It's been 2.5 years of like healing, but it's not like it's not like I got sober and then all of a sudden like I'm ready to just shine and show everybody, the real me, and like look at how beautiful I am. Like Mitch, I still have days when I don't even want a mirror, let alone I'm gonna say like I love you. Like I don't even want to look, like I don't even want to recognize myself. And it's a hard exercise, but I think the common denominator in those rooms, like, and I had this for me, and it saved my life.
Yeah.
Like, was the person in the front of the room leading the group. And I'm not trying to blow up egos here because I know I can get my fucking ego blown out of proportion too. But like, it's the energy from the leader in the group that like makes it okay for us to be vulnerable, like to let those walls down. Like, and I found that out. Like, I was leading breathwork classes, right? And these are like, we're doing like Wim Hof method, and it's fucking loud and it's goofy, and you're like fucking making all sorts of noise. And like, I'm with people who are fucking 36 hours sober, and they're like, this is bomb, this is stupid, like what are we doing here? And I found like I had very little success when I was just like, I just like do this, like just told them what to do, like do this. I didn't participate with them. I didn't like make myself a part of the group. And I asked for some advice. I got some advice from an actual former guest of ours on the pod named Sage. And he was like, you need to be a part of that group, like lead by example, like do the exercise, like be a part of it. And by doing that, like I think people found like, oh, all right, like the guy who works here, who's like wearing the Heron Wellness shirt, is like making a fool of himself, like doing this breath exercise. So okay, like I guess I can do it too. And that's what I see. Like you're out there playing the guitar, like riffing, like putting together melodies, like you and Mitch, like you're participating in the writing, you're like putting the prompts together, sitting in, doing the writing as well, sharing what you've written. Like and that's what I'm saying. And in the beginning of this whole episode, you're talking about the treatment centers you went to and people just talking down to you. And that's like the shit that doesn't work for me. So it's almost like full circle. It's recovery. It's everything. Like I need to be, if I'm going to learn anything or make any growth, like if I'm going to listen to the guy that is trying to improve like my life or is leading a group or is teaching, like then he needs to be a part of it. Like he needs to be on my level doing it with me. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. And also like, I'm not a finished product, you know, and it's important to say that. Like I'll be like, just being real and authentic, and like, you know, for me, I think you said this, Andrew. You said, like when I first got clean and sober, I just wanted to be kicking ass like day one.
Yeah.
And man, that is so not reality, you know? It's like, okay, I'm day one sober, like, let's go get it. Record deal, like, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And man, I think just realizing like progress, not perfection, like easy does it, like these slogans that just help me kind of, I think, get right sized, you know? And yeah.
Yeah. I used to say progress, not perfection. And then this guy, I'm going to sound like a old timer, but he was like, it's not progress, not perfection. It's spiritual progress, not perfection. And I was like, it's the same thing. He was like, no, it's not. I like both. They're actually very different. But I love that. And it's really true.
Dude, I'll have a couple cookies.
Yeah.
And then the next day I look in the mirror and I'm like, God damn it, Miles, you piece of shit. You know? So like, yeah, dude, some mornings are really tough.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, no cookies today.
Well, we have to be consistent, right? Like it's so wild that I was just talking to Steve-O about this a couple days ago. I was like working a super hardcore program, you know, like multiple meetings a week, talking with my sponsor multiple times. And then I got this new job, then I got a promotion, then my swim lessons were doing well, my relationships were going well with friends and family. And then I was like, I'm going to skip this week, you know, or I'm not going to call this today. And I'm not going to call the next day. And then I found myself in a point where I was like, I just skipped the last 2 weeks of meetings, you know, and I'm angry at everyone at work. I'm angry at all the people in my life. I'm angry when I get home. There's just, and it was like, why am I so angry? And it's like, Oh, because you started prioritizing things above your recovery, and like
Mm.
all of these gifts have been given because I had done that work. It doesn't just go away when things get, when your life stuff gets better.
Right.
We have to work like a consistent program, and I always will. And it's so wild how fast it's like. Well, I'm glad I finally checked that alcoholism box. Like everything's
Yeah.
going well. I don't have to do that anymore. It's so wild how it's just kind of like. It might sound crazy, but how I perceive it is it's just like lane and rest, or like people say like your addiction or
Remission, yeah.
alcoholism is just doing push-ups while it waits,
Right.
for you to go back out. And it's super important for us to keep that at the front of our minds. It really is.
Yeah, I have a forgetter, man. It's
Yeah.
like suddenly my life is so good, and then I stop doing those same things that helped me get to the point where my
Exactly.
life was so good. It's like, hey, remember when you were like praying, meditating, getting to
Exactly.
meetings, and doing those things that help you, thrive. And so, yeah, dude, it's so easy to forget sometimes.
It is. It
Yeah.
is definitely.
I think it's a cool space for me to be sitting here, not in the studio, of course, but like at, on this podcast facing you guys, with, you know, both over half a decade of sobriety under your belts, both a little bit older than me. And I'm thinking like I'm just kind of racking my brain about like, so like what's the moral of the story here for me? And the moral, like what I'm thinking is like how amazing it is for a person like me to sit here like in pretty early recovery and be graced with two individuals who like admit they're not perfect.
Mm.
Like I've been around recovery for probably 5 or 6 years. I didn't get it.
Mm.
I tried to do it myself. Um, I was resistant. I never really wanted to stop. I didn't have that gift of desperation that is mentioned. But the other thing is the people in my life who I saw as the people, like the sober people and people who had their life together, like I saw their lives that they were perfect.
Mm.
I saw all these things coming together in their lives professionally, with relationships, with significant others, with jobs and loved ones and everything, financially, spiritually, everything
Mm.
was just like the way I looked at it. I was like, yeah, like I'll never get there. Like that's an unattainable goal. And I said, why even bother to try to see you guys? And this is the power of example coming into play. And again, this is like this is the power of PMR. This is, I think, the power of the Vic James Center. Like you go in there into these groups and you're like, hey, I'm just an alcoholic and an addict and I like music and it helped my healing process and it's really important to me. And you know, and Mitch, you sit on this podcast and you're like, yeah, like I have X, Y, and Z and this number of years and everything else, but like my life's still a mess in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And but that's what inspires me because I'm like, okay, like my life's a fucking mess too, but
Mm.
it doesn't mean I should give up on this recovery thing. Like I'm looking on the externals and I'm like, this guy has a lot going for him. So just because he thinks his life is still a mess, just because things aren't perfect, just because he hasn't reached that like ultimate godly position,
Mm.
that's not what I need to strive for.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the beauty of what you're doing and ultimately what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, especially nowadays with like Instagram and TikTok and influencer culture, it's like I think there's so much pressure on young people to be super successful really young. And it's like for me, I just remember being in my 20s just like, man, I'm a failure. Sober,
Right.
sober, clean and sober. I'm working in a grocery store. I have 5 years sober. I'm sponsoring guys. I'm in the middle of, my 12-step program. And just like, I just want to die. Like I'm miserable. Like my life does not look the way that I thought it was going to look. And I mean, in the last 3 years, my life has drastically changed from like, not that like this is no bash on grocery store employees whatsoever. Like I made some great friends there, whatever. It just wasn't something that I wanted to do in my life. And I just like, in like 3 years, my life has changed so drastically. And all that work that we put in to our internal lives, like, we don't know when it's going to manifest, when, like, how that is going to affect our outside world in some way, you know? But in 3 years, it's like I started doing voiceover acting. I started now doing Vic James, working with Vic James Center, and I released an EP for the first time. And, you know, I'm like working full time as an artist. It's ridiculous. So it's, I don't know, man, just so much can change in so little time. And especially for someone in recovery, it's like I can be so impulsive and just want it now.
Yeah.
And learning
Definitely.
to kind of just get right sized and go, who knows? Just put one foot in front of the other,
Yeah.
you know? So
100%. I think trying to get to a place where I'll be happy and content with whatever's going on. you know?
Exactly.
And that's hard. I think I was talking in my home group a month ago or something about I'm trying to find balance. I need balance. Balance is what I'm looking for. And some like dude hit me with a Jedi. He was like, balance is when you stop looking for it. And I was like, God damn.
yes.
I was like, that was cool.
That's where it's at.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, because it's me trying to find it. You know,
That's right.
You know, I'll balance it out. Let me do it. Let me get a hang of this schedule.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it's interesting what Andrew was saying too. Is like as our recovery progresses and our program changes and all this stuff, our microscope, you know, kind of gets more zoomed in. So like I can be more critical and I can be more attuned to like if I miss praying this morning, I'm going to feel it now, you know, or if I miss meditation or something, I'm going to feel it more. And as you go, you get more cued into yourself and your energy and like all that stuff. The spiritual progress, you know, is looking like you just see it more. And the microscope zooms in. That's the best visual I can give you. It's interesting how, and we have to be careful with being critical or analytical of how we're doing. Because I know for me, I love to beat up on Mitch. I love to be like, you know, this is going well, but this isn't, and you can do better here, and like that can be, you know, an unhealthy spiral to some degree. But I think we're all doing pretty good. You know, we're doing the best. Like we said, what we say last week, we're doing the best we can. We're doing the we made it. That's a good point. You know, my sponsor says you woke up this morning, the gift has been given. You know, what
1000%.
What more can you ask for? If you take that perspective on a daily occurrence, I mean, you're going to be in a good spot. You know,
it's wild.
Yeah.
How my perspective can change everything.
Yeah.
It's all my perception. I mean, dude, I've had so many, like, they're dead. They're not here anymore.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So the fact that, oh my God, I show up for jobs. I mean, basic things. I'm like, wow, I'm alive today. That's incredible. You know, especially in also being sober. I mean, that's the gift.
Yeah. 100%. Like we're doing like a recovery podcast.
Like, you're in a studio for crying out loud.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just like it's been a dope ride. You know, it's just
so
like
cool.
It's pretty cool to just like keep moving and grooving. You know. But it's been absolutely wonderful getting to know you, sit down with you, and listen to you. Since you know you're living in LA, love to continue the relationship and you know be chilling out here because. You seem like a very positive influence, you know, and I try to surround myself with as many positive influences as possible. So it's been awesome having you on, and thank you for sharing your story so honestly. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, man. I'm grateful to be here, and 1000%, dude. We'll definitely stay connected, and and you're coming out to LA, right? I can't wait.
Oh yeah, you told him that?
I tell everybody that. You should know that by now.
No, I love what you guys are doing, man.
Yeah, I'm going to build a zip line from Boston to here. Get you over here, baby.
I love it. Thank you for having me on here.
It's been an honor, man. It's amazing seeing what the Vic James Center is doing, seeing just all the different programs perspectives on recovery, perspectives on mental health, and your connection with music is really powerful. And definitely gave me a lot to think about. Everyone listening, check out The Girl with the Tattoos
Yeah.
on all streaming platforms.
Coming out next Friday. We'll link it, we'll tag it, we'll plug it in. Shout out Nova. She'll be doing that, so I shouldn't say we. Be helping us
Thank you, Nova.
Produce it. And thank you so much for tuning in. This has been episode 55 of the PMR podcast. Shout out to the boys for being out here. Thanks for coming in. Bebe, Steve-O, Sam, they're all in here. And thank you, Miles. Sincerely. Appreciate it.
Grateful to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we'll keep coming back.
Oh.
Cheers. Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
That was a
you're
banger,
so
bro.
charismatic.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's a beast,
thank
bro.
you so much.